Hi, welcome to the new episode of La Hora Hilo. I'm speaking in English because we have an author that is very important for us to have in, and I know that English is his first language, but I know he has roots in with the Spanish, and his will sprinkle a little bit, sprinkle our conversation with some Spanish words as well. But I'm very honored to have here John Parra, so I welcome you.
Oh, thank you, Ori. It's wonderful to be here.
And this is a space that we are doing with Hilo Colectivo Books and SBWI that we are combining our strengths to have these conversations. And well, the first question for you, John, is about your childhood. How you became interested in books in your early life.
Well, books, my mom, I think, was my biggest influence on me because she was a school teacher for more than 35 years. And one of the wonderful things she did for myself and my brothers was take us to the library, the public library. And so I have a many vivid memories of going there and looking at picture books at a very young age. And because I also was a visual learner, I loved looking at the pictures in the picture books. And I think that's such an interesting um, thing to remember that one of a child's first introductions to art is in picture books. So to me, those were some of the early foundations. And then also she read to us out loud growing up. So I fell in love with stories and storytelling and just sort of just enjoying it. And so that had a profound effect on me as a young person for sure. And my father was an amateur artist and he loved to draw. And when he was drawing, he would also tell stories about, about what he was drawing, and usually it was about his life growing up. My father was a migrant farm worker working in Central Valley of California. And eventually, when he became older, he was a landscape contractor. But he would always draw, and I was so inspired by those two things, both the libraries, the books, the artwork. And it's not a surprise. I mean, when I was young, I didn't know, but looking back, it's not a surprise that I ended up where I get to be sharing books of my own now with people.
It's very interesting because I was looking for your books, and I was watching for one side. We can classify. You have a lot of books, but we can see maybe two big groups of books. One of these talking about books itself, like the Biblioburro, about the interlibraries and all of that. The side of your mom could be, and the side of your
Yes.
dad, it could be all of those that are talking about more traditions and nature and the growing as an artist and all of that. So it's very interesting to see that you combine these two big forces on you.
Yes, it was I mean it was a process. It was a journey to get to doing children's books. When I was in school, I didn't know also that you could grow up to be an artist professionally and also do children's books, an author. Again, I was a visual learner, so language for me, I was very introverted, so I wasn't quite skilled at the language, even in English. But art, doing storytelling through my art gave me confidence. And I really didn't take it seriously until a visiting artist came to my school and I recognized their work. And this person saw something in me that had potential, I guess. And so I studied with him. He became my mentor for a year. His name was Larry Carroll, and he actually got me a scholarship to go to art school. And while I was in art school, I started learning different techniques, everything I would call the toolbox in art. And that was sort of my focus for many years. But I felt after a while, I started questioning. I knew how to do art well, but I wasn't sure something was missing. There was an ingredient that felt that some of the enthusiasm was missing, I guess, when I what I used to felt when I was younger, until a Chicano artist came to my school. His name was Salmon Huerta, and he gave a lecture about his artwork, and he talked about his background, and he talked about where he came from, and he talked about, you know, Latino culture and Hispanic culture, and the food and the music and the family, and how he started incorporating those ideas into his work. And we had this really wonderful conversation after his presentation, just one on one. And I said, you know what? I started remembering, everything that meant something to me about my life, and what's in my heart, which is my family, and all the same things, food, music, Latino, the customs, the history that my family and I have shared. Um, and I wanted to put it into my work. And once I did that, everything clicked, everything changed. I got so excited, that all the projects I started working on just felt this infused excitement, enthusiasm, and I never looked back. So that was the start of my, I guess, the art style also that I kind of created. I speak to a lot of students, especially older students, about creating how to create an art style, and this is kind of how like I formed. It was a big moment for me when I formed that style, and soon after started doing children's books.
How you will describe your art style?
It's a kind of a combination because I'm kind of come from a multicultural family. My father is Mexican and my mother is American. So I have, both Latino, Hispanic roots and also, American roots. So taking, artists that I grew up with, such as Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo, Jose Guadalupe Orozco, all these artists, especially from Mexico. Um, and I just grew up with those styles, and I love their work and I love their art, but all art. And then as also from a lot of folk art from America, that could be Howard Finster, Grandma Moses, many others. And I just love that the folk art style also has a storytelling. Also in Mexico, the retablos, they have that storytelling kind of um, element to their work, and I found it fascinating. So the style, because I asked myself, well, what style do I like? I know how to do art well, but I want to know, but what do I really like? What do I enjoy? Because I want this to be an enjoyable process, an enjoyable journey that I'm on. And so when I kind of focused my energies into that and brought those elements and sort of synthesize those together, that was the start of my style, my voice. And of course, I make adjustments. I kind of move. I want it to be flexible too. I don't want to be just, completely locked in and have no room for growth. Because as an artist, we always have to grow. We always have to, expand a little bit. And you want to make sure to keep learning, keep being a student of life, and be able to be flexible with your work and to grow.
Coming back to your beginnings, I was interested. I am interested in know a little bit more about these memories of your family, and which kind of specific memories you have about your childhood. They are very distinct.
Well, I mean, I remember a lot of it revolved around food. My aunts were famous for their cooking, especially around the holiday time. We made a lot of tamales, which we would help. So I vividly remember, the giant pot on the stove with all the tamales, in the pot, and of course we ate our probably more than we made, but it was just a special moment. So that was a special memory, that I definitely remember. Also, my father. who had his own landscape construction business. I worked for him for 12 years. And so also working alongside his employees, which many were migrants from Mexico and Central America and things like this. And so just spending time, working together, living together, sharing meals together, celebrating moments together. It was all, those that growing up, it made it different. It made it special, and I just want to honor. I'm kind of like wanting to honor those memories in a sense, and I think I hope I do. So
Yeah, definitely. I see that part of this like a honor. I think you take your father, but it's probably is much more than that. No, like
yeah,
honor that men and women that are behind us and give us, they took us in our shoulders. No.
yes, yes.
I will say I will try to you talk about about your influences. You have a more specific influences in your artist life in the beginning. How you can describe maybe a difference between the beginning and how you're growing up and appear new people probably in a way.
Well, when I was young, of course, my first inspiration was my father because he was an amateur artist, always drawing and things like that. In fact, I'd like to share kind of a special thing from my childhood. This is a drawing that I did when I was in kindergarten, and my parents saved these drawings because they saw, I don't know why they would save, this for many, many, many years. And so this is a drawing based on what my dad sometimes drew, but it was, he would talk about the gardens, about walkways, about, how, because he was a landscape designer and he was always thinking about the home. And so I wanted to do something similar to that. So that was, again, first inspiration. Um, was him. And then, as a normal young kid, I got into cartoons and video games and anime and all sorts of things from everywhere else. And I would explore those, as a child. But again, there were things in my family that I also would see showing up, that would be part of that artwork, and again, because I grew up mostly with my father's side, the Mexican side of my family. um those were definitely early influences on me. I'm trying to think, and then as I got older, of course, I was in art school. I learned all about many different artists, you learn about the big, but you learn Picasso, the Impressionists, everything about the art history, and that also is important when you learn about also the ideas now. Like I think ideas, I mean, sharing wonderful art without, like, you want to communicate something important in art. It's not just about painting pretty pictures, in other words. It's about also sharing something of value, something that could be either a universal truth or something that relates to people, something that lets people know, like, they understand me, I understand you. There's sort of this symbiotic kind of relationship to the viewer where you're trying to connect to people in a different way. Then it could use language, but it's mostly about the artwork. And the concept of that, when you kind of learn about those ideas when you're studying these masters, is amazing. And that's, you have to take those ideas and then you kind of use them, and then what your thoughts are, what you want to express, and what you want to say, um, in your art is just as important as how well you paint or create a piece of art sometimes. And so I think when you combine those two things, that's where the magic happens. And by the way, it's not always successful when you're doing art or you're doing work, and to be mindful of the fact that um, you're editing everything down too. So when you're working on things, sometimes you could be frustrated. Even at my at even whatever level you're at in your art career, your art journey, you can be patient with yourself and say, this is where I'm at, but it's not working. I'm focusing on this. I would say like 70% of the work I do on my picture books, just end up not being used. It's not good enough. It's not this. It just doesn't work. And to be aware of that's just a part of the journey. That's just a part of the process, that you're trying to find um, special um, that special way to present your work, but you kind of have to get through a lot to get there to that point. So again, and when you study artists from the past, when you study the masters, everybody goes through it. They all go through this process. But I'd like to remind people of that don't be too hard on yourself. That's just the way it is sometimes.
Talking about this process, how you describe the process that you are when you receive an idea? Well, there are probably two ways. You receive an idea. There's some editors that say you, oh, John, you will be great, super good in this for this book, or you have your own idea because you have books that you're the author too. How you work at those ideas?
Well, once I receive a manuscript, if I'm not the author of the book, once I receive the manuscript, and I'm available to work on a job, the first indication that enters my head is, do I visually start seeing images in my head when I start reading the story? It's like everybody will tell you the book is better than the movie, right? Because the book is in your head and you're already creating the ideas. So I know when I'm working on a project, if I can start seeing the images forming in my head right away. But that's just the initial kind of reaction. The first real official step is I will make a list of things about related to this book, and it's about images, not just about images. It's not just about the written text, but pictures, food, music, locations, architecture, the the biology, the plants, the animals, the clothing, the time period, um, anything that I can think of, even if it's just adjacent to the topic. I want to build a kind of a collection of ideas and inspiration when I start. And then from that moment, I will then start drawing. I'll start sketching all the pages, and I start with characters first because people are responding to the characters. And it doesn't matter if the character is an animal, a person, or a thing. It doesn't matter. You have to start with the character because that's what draws people in, and I connect with. And so when you're making the connections, you have to start with the characters first. Once you can do the characters, you can start building the world around it, backgrounds, environments, and then once the drawings are done, about which is the halfway point, all the sketches are done. You submit that to the publisher, and they'll have to review those pages before you start doing the final art. And hopefully, you get the pages back with notes saying, okay, this looks good. Why don't we move this? Why don't we fix this? How about we change this? So you get a lot of notes, and this is just that's an absolutely normal part of the process. So never feel bad that somebody is making suggestions for your work. It's a team effort, and everybody's trying to arrive at the best possible um, result or product, if you will. And so after they approve it, I make adjustments, and I'll start painting. And when I start painting, I have a process because I use physical paint. I use acrylic, illustration board, and acrylic paints to start creating my work. In fact, hold on, if you will, just a
Go
minute,
ahead, go ahead.
just a moment here. See if I can bring this up. Okay. So I have a, so I'll start. I start with illustration board. Um, oh, there we go. And it's just a plain, but it's kind of like a really strong board. I'll tape up the edges, and then I'll gesso it. I'll add the gesso to it. And then what it ends up happening is I start adding layers of acrylic paint. So I'll start with one color, just paint it with flat colors, and then pretty soon, hold on. Uh, I'll start, I'll take sandpaper. I'll take sandpaper and I'll start sandpapering into it. So then you reveal the colors underneath. And then once I have that, I have like a nice background with kind of like, you have to know what the final color is, the final layer is. And then you sandpaper it into it, you get these wonderful textures. You can have water droplets, you can kind of gouge into it. And I want to have this rough aesthetic background to it. And then once I do that, I use a sketch. I have a printout of a sketch that I've done. And this is a portrait I did of Frida. And then I'll start transferring, I'll start transferring with because I charcoal the back and I start transferring each element, and I'll start masking things off and transferring the shapes down and then shading everything one step at a time, one step at a time. And so that's kind of like my painting process of doing the work. And that's a big part of what I've been doing for many years. And I like it. I like that you have original artwork that I can now hang up. As you can see behind me, there's lots of artwork hanging in my house. I get to have exhibits at museums and galleries, and that feels wonderful, and to share it. And I bring some of those original paintings that I've done for the book to school visits so that kids could see. I want the children to see, and young students to see, this is it. This is what it looks like, and kind of remove a little bit of the mystery, if you will. That this is the image that ended up in this book. And I don't know. I want them to make connections too. Like, it's important to me. As again, my mom was a school teacher. I love giving information and sharing that knowledge. Whatever I know, I just want to share it and give it to people as much as I can and help them on their journey, because I know the journey I'm on. I know the journey where I'm going. But I remember when I was young, how hard it was for me to find it. Even though, again, I mentioned earlier, it's obvious now where I ended up. But at the time when I was young, I did not know. I had no frame of reference. So again, if I can share some of that, it's important. My dad always said, he uses that Maya Angelou quote. Don't go around life with a catcher's mitt. You have to throw back. You have to give back, and that's a part of this process too, is to give back.
The words I was if wonder if they were you had a moment in your life that you said, "Oh, I do this or not." Like this is it becoming a theme for a lot of artists. That the moment that you doubt if it's your real path or life path, you had that or not.
Well, I remember where I was the moment I decided I was going to be an artist. As I previously spoke about, my mentor, Larry Carroll, because he asked me, he said, "I'm going to work with you." When I first met him, "I'm going to work with you, and we're going to get you a scholarship to go to art school," because I was resistant to go to art school because I didn't have a lot of money. It didn't seem practical, like, what am I going to do with an art school degree? What am I going to do with this? Like, I was hesitant, I doubted myself. But he said, I remember standing in his living room, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to work with you for the next year, and you're going to get a scholarship, John, to go to art school." Um, and I remember when he asked me that, I remember this is not just about a scholarship to go to school. This is about for the rest of my life. That I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a decision right now, right here, for the rest of my life to follow this path, whatever, and wherever it goes, I'm just going to make art a part of my life for the rest of my life, whatever happens. And I'm, in a sense, I've been kind of following that ever since that moment. I'm just sort of trying to see how far I can take it. I had no um I try to make small goals every day just to achieve things, and then over time that adds up. And that's a reminder. It's like it's not about, you can have all the enthusiasm in the world to accomplish something, but the real work is and accomplishments are done just on a day-to-day basis, just small goals every single day, every single day, every single day. You do a little bit, and over time that adds up. And so when I made the decision standing there in his in his home. It just it impacted me. It impacted me greatly. I had focus. I had a goal. I had meaning. And after a year of working really, really hard, because I was going to school, I was working for my father in landscape construction, and I was doing artwork for to prepare for the scholarship. And after a year, I entered my art school as the number one entering portfolio and got a full scholarship. And I'm indebted to Mr. Grau for his time and for the gift that he gave me for forever. And so for every school presentation I do, I share his photo along with a few other pictures of teachers that really went out of their way to look out for me. And so maybe there are people, that come into your life. We need those people. We need to be that person, and we need to experience those things, in life. We need to have people in our life that kind of show us the way sometimes, and we need to be that person also to show other people the way. It's really important, especially in today.
No, yeah, you're right. I can imagine people listening this conversation and say, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That remember who your mentors are. They are right there. Is probably is in your past or your present. There are a lot of kids right now probably thinking, what is my path? Where in if I'm good enough or to continue this dream or
It's a really important.
I would like to ask you how you are working with the Latino representation. There are several authors or illustrators that are they're working with the Latino cultures and try to show to the people in the U.S. Elaborate some books about Latinos. So, how you feel that? I don't know if it's a myth or not, but there are myths. I will say in this industry, I'll say that some editors are kind of uh, thinking about Latinos in specific ways, in a frame that what you need to represent in this Latino picture book or whatever, and how you can as an artist confront these stereotypes. I will say maybe stereotypes was a good word about how Latinos are, which colors we have, or which traditions we have, etc.
Yes.
How you see this matter?
Well, what's interesting is how diverse, Latino communities are. I come from my family, background. My father, who I grew up with mostly, is Mexican. And so I became aware of a lot of Mexican tradition. But my wife, mi esposa, is Puerto Rican. And so they have different food, different music, different, similar. I mean, we share the same language in a sense, but even the language, some of the idioms are different. And that's across all the cultures throughout Latin America. Spain is different from other places, that speak Spanish. And sometimes editors could fall into it's only uh, it's only one culture that they sort of identify or connect with, and that everything should be like connected to that culture. And it's not. It's um, a very diverse selection. And so you have to be aware of those things, and you have to also remind them and be an educator and maybe teach people if that is an opportunity to for them to learn, hopefully. But I've had projects that have come to me, and they have seemed a little one-dimensional when it comes to the the message or the story that's kind of they want to tell, and I have to kind of tell them, look, that's not quite for me, or at least try to get them to see, expand on these things sometimes, I think our responsibility also is, to take what we know, to take, the background, and and try to focus on stories that share the diversity within the Latino community. You know, that who we are is, we have to be the educators in a sense, and we have to kind of like, share that, and celebrate it in a sense that we're educating, that we're celebrating, that we're informing them that, oh, this is more than just one culture of, or one type of, demographic here. It's there's so much to learn. And the wonderful thing now is I started doing children's books 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And my first book was a book, about Gabriela Mistral, who was a poet from Chile. And so when again, I didn't know much, but I had friends who were from Chile, and I knew I was wise enough to speak with them. I did my homework. That's another thing. It's okay to do homework. It's okay to learn. It's okay for us. We don't have to know everything about everything in the Latino culture, but we should learn. We should ask. We should talk to people that know about these things, and then we do the work, and then we do the process, and then, because I want every book that I work on, because I do, books on Latino culture, but the books could be about a person from Chile, could be a book about somebody from Puerto Rico, someone from, Colombia. Those are different places. Those are different, with different customs and different things within the Latino community. But I want the books, when somebody reads them and somebody sees them, to feel, if they were from that place, they would feel, this is connects to me. This feels right to me. And it's because you do your homework, you share with people that are experts or with that background, you talk to people, and then this is how we produce, a diverse set of, Latino books that represent all of us, that represents each of us, and that's something that takes effort, but it's a rewarding process, and it just takes time. It just takes time. So again, I've been doing it for 20 years, and but it's important that we, um, as you say, avoid stereotypes. That doesn't help. And work on stories that connect with our hearts and connect with people, and just that we present it in the, um, appropriate way.
I was just reading the book of Gabriela. I'm Chilean, so I know that your last name is very important in Chile because we have
I
a
know.
big
Para is a
family, the
very common
Parra,
name in
all
Chile.
artists.
Yes, I know. I'm familiar with, them. They're a big family. In fact, my brother was, actually visiting Santiago, last year, and he brought the book was also being used at the Gabriela Mistral Museum, my book, all the way in Chile. So again, your stories that you tell have a far reach, especially throughout Latin America, and to be mindful that, people are going to look and see and read it. But I am honored that I'm part, a little part of that museum, and so it's special.
No, that's fantastic. I would like to switch a little bit just to I noticed it in several interviews I see of you because I was research doing my job.
Yes.
To look for interviews that you did. And I always notice that in your corner right there, in your right side, you have a couple of guitars.
Yes.
And is important the music for you because your sides, you're sitting the food and all of that tradition,
Yes.
but music, I feel that is something important.
Yeah, music was important to me. Growing up, my mom started me on piano lessons, and when I was young, I didn't quite appreciate it. But when I got older, I started to learn guitar in my teenage years, and I played in bands in Los Angeles, and a lot of rock bands, punk rock bands, crazy bands. But we had a lot of fun, and I've always had music as part of my life. I still go to concerts, I still go see shows, and my taste in music is quite, I guess, pretty diverse. Because I love a lot of American musicians, British musicians, but music also in Spanish. Mana was big in our house growing up. The Gypsy Kings, Bad Bunny, also uh, we're a big fan here in this household for sure. And so I love music. I love what it does because musically, just like art, just like painting, it moves you in a different way. And when you play music, you kind of you're now part of that energy. You're actually riding the energy, almost like a surfer riding a wave. It's almost like you're actually a part of that electricity, and it's fun. So I've been playing music. Again, I'm not great or anything, but I love that I can just have it as a way to um just sort of I don't know, feel good, feel alive, and make some noise, and I don't know. And especially when you're playing with other people, because art, and making art is a very solitary process sometimes. And music is actually meant to be played with others. You're supposed to bring it in a group. And so my brother Matt, my younger brother Matthew, plays music. He plays piano, he plays drums and guitar. And so when we get together and we visit each other, we play music, and anybody else that wants to come and join us and sing songs, and so that's you can feel it, you can see it. We're at his house, and the energy in the home is, there's something magical about it, and people that are visiting the home, and and we're performing, it's like it just changes. It changes. It elevates. It elevates everybody's mood. You feel good. You feel alive. You feel like life is special, and that this is a moment to remember.
Do you use the music when you're painting too, or no?
I It depends. It depends what I'm doing. If I have to focus on something very um, when I have to think critically, conceptually, I try not to have music. I try to just I have to, it has to be quiet. When I'm working on things that are more um, muscle memory, um, I can play some music, but not too loud. It somehow takes me a little bit out of the work that I'm doing for some reason. I don't know why. It for me it does. For some people they love it. Some people they have to have something going on. But for me, I have to have it a little bit on the quieter side.
Well, when talking about books again, you have several works with Monica Brown, Miranda Paul, or Pat Mora. They're really big names. How you feel that? I think working with them, how has been?
Well, it's funny when you work on a picture book. If you're not familiar with the process, I never work with authors. I work with publishers.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but having said that, so what happens is I'll receive a manuscript, and it usually comes from my agent, and then I work with an art director at the publisher, and then we work through the whole process to create the book. Afterwards, though, I'll get to usually meet the author if it's the first time I'm working with that author. Although I've been around a long time, I've met authors that I then end up working with later on. So I might have met them already, but I usually don't speak to them during the process of doing the book. It's usually after the book is published, when the book is published, that we have a kind of formed a friendship, a connection, a communication. Because you have to go out and now present this book to the world, and that's part of the promotion and share it. And so it's fun and exciting. And as I always say, I'm part of a team. I'm part of a group that has created this book. I'm the artist, and visually, I'm kind of at the forefront of the book, but this was a team effort, and I love being with the authors, traveling sometimes to different book events, and sharing the stories and talking about getting their perspective and where they were when they were writing the story, and then I tell them about my process and what I thought of their stories. And so what's wonderful about this, because again, as a kid, I loved picture books. As an adult, I love picture books. It's no different. I am a fan just like anybody else. So when I talk to the authors that I would get to work with, I'm just excited too. It's like going to Comic-Con. You get excited. It's exciting to me to meet them. And so we have, of course, that's the wonderful thing about the unexpected thing also that I didn't realize was going to happen, that the people that I admire in this field, the people that I love looking at the books, is I get to be friends with them. I get to be my colleagues, with them. I get to talk to them, and it's just I get so happy to see them. I show up at an event. I can't stop talking. Usually I'm a very quiet person, but when I go and I see them at that event, and I'm just a blubbering mess. So.
Well, I would like to ask you if you can read something for us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have a special book that just came out, and it's called "This Moment Is Special," and it's a Dia de Muertos story. And I won't read the whole book. I'm just going to go through a few pages, if that's okay. But the book is about a boy who prepares for Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead, and he's still celebrating all the little things in his life and finding inspiration and meaning in each moment, both big and small. And as he honors his family, and food and music and school and friends and family and everyone that came before him. And then with each moment, he's embracing a kind of a special promise to remember. And so that's kind of what the book is really talking about. So it's like mindfulness with Day of the Dead, because mindfulness is about celebrating those moments throughout a day. And when you celebrate Dia de Muertos, you're celebrating a life. And what is a life but is made up of special moments and memories? And so that's kind of where the story, because I wrote this book and I did the artwork for this book. So I'm going to pick a couple pages. I'll start with the first page. So this is the first page right here. And it says, "It's early. My house sits quiet and still. Today holds a special promise. Una promesa especial." And this page, let's see. Can we see? There we go. And this is a wonderful page because it reminds me so much of my family. When you gather together, you sit down, you're sharing a meal together. Anytime you sit down and you share a meal with people, with family or friends, something special always happens. I know most of us are on our phones all the time and things like that, but this is where the real magic happens. So again, I wanted to showcase that. I love food. I love when you're sharing food. So this is my family gathers for a tamale, avocado, and egg breakfast. We feel close and joyful. Nos sentimos unidos y alegres. And then they're running a race to school. And then they're learning. Of course, he's painting. The little boy is painting. This is a page that many of us can identify with. You know, when you get nervous and you have to be on stage and you have to, you know, especially at a young person, you know, I always, I used to get the worst butterflies in my stomach, you know, but I wanted to share that. I wanted to be a moment that is a special moment, even though it might be uncomfortable. It's still a special moment that you'll remember. And so, you know, repeating the words calm, confident, strong. I find courage. Hallo el coraje. You know, I find courage. And then, of course, running through rain and puddles. And as nature gets wild. Oh, I love this page, this one. Because again, this reminds me of childhood for sure. You know, riding your bicycle, being with friends. You know, my friends wait for me. They like me for me. I like them for them. Nos apreciamos. You know, there's respect. There is caring. They like me for me. They accept me. It's a really important feeling to have as a kid that you're accepted and that people accept you, you know, and it's just, I don't know, that to me is, it's very simple to say, but it's like, I love that line, you know. And of course, you know, story time when you're reading, you know, I choose a favorite story, reading the words. I take a journey with my book. Mi libro me transporta a otros lugares. And so again, we take the journey with the book. Let's see, and gardening. I love that because that reminds me of working with my dad. Oh, here we go. We got the music page,
I
right?
knew.
This is this is me when I was a kid. And this is based on one of my friends. So, you know, and I wanted it to be loud when I wrote this. Bang, snap, strum. Let's count it out and practice again. I feel the music's energy, you know. Siento la energía de la música. So I love this page because it just like sometimes kids, you want to be loud, you want to be expressive, you want to just you know, you have all this energy and you want to get it out. And with music, you can. And so that's just a wonderful part, you know. Also his connection with his abuela, you know, that he is sharing time with her is important, you know, searching for a new recipe with abuela. I am patient and helpful. Soy paciente y servicial. And then they say goodbye. This is one. I think we can identify a lot with this picture because, you know, how many times have we looked up at the sky at night and seen the stars, you know, and been moved by that? You don't even have, you don't say anything. You're very quiet, very still. And it just like says, looking up, I see a sea of stars. The constellations in the sky tell stories and myths. I'm in awe. Estoy asombrado. You know, that feeling you have that you're just you feel small, but you also feel special, like in that moment, that it's this amazing, I don't know, connection to the universe, to life, to the world. When you look up at the stars, you can't help but feel kind of moved by that. And then of course, you know, it's time to celebrate. It's time to celebrate the Dia de Muertos. And, you know, so we come together, family and friends, and keep our promise to honor and celebrate. I am here now for all of life's special moments. I carry love in my heart and I remember. Yo recuerdo. And so he remembers. He remembers life. He remembers the families that have gone on. And then at the very end, we find out the little skeleton boy is actually a real boy. And the mother wipes away the makeup. And then it says, often talks about is a direct question to the reader. Do you have a special moment? ¿Recuerdas un momento especial? A memory so real and strong you carried with you? A feeling that makes you pause and wonder? A time that makes you feel alive? I ask, how many special moments can a person have? Will I find time to cheer, dance, laugh, and sing, or just hang out and be myself? Will I walk with loved ones and speak my thoughts? Can I give love and feel grateful for family and friends? We are all here to live, to dream, to feel young, to use our imagination, brains, and hearts. Tomorrow arrives fast with many journeys to come. After all, these special moments add up to special memories in the end. Son momentos tan especiales. And so, I wanted to leave it like as a something to the reader. What kind of life are you gonna have? What kind of special moments will you make? And that's the thing, because we all make special moments. We have it within our power. And also we have the power to make special moments for others and what our impact is on our community and the people around us, and to be mindful of those things as well. So that's my story. This moment is special.
I love this idea of us thinking in El Día de los Muertos like a celebration of life. I think it's great, and this the word is sounding in my head. The word recuerdo. The origin of the recuerdo is kind of it's coming from the heart. So
Yeah,
it's recuerdo is heart. It's not just the mind. It's mind and heart.
mind and heart.
Um, so thank you very much for all of this time. I was amazed with all the stories and recuerdos that you had of your life, or early life, and your story as a creator. I will just ask you just a little thing. You thinking in those two books that you have, the Little Library and Blue Biblioburro. I always ask to the creators, authors, to think in a note, on a message. So I will ask you to, if you can leave a message in a biblioburro or in a little library, that you can find a little message for those kids that you said, and at some point you said, you talk a couple times about that, about the visual learners. We can leave a little message for those visual learners specifically, that in a biblioburro or in a little library.
Well, the wonderful thing about the Bibliobuddha book is it's about a girl who creates her own stories and artwork. And so I hope kids see the power that they have, that they can create their own stories, that they are the future, that they will be the ones that make uh, the world better, that it will make the excellent ideas and write them down and create art around them. And these are the goals of my books. I'm trying to impart a wisdom to for others to follow a path that I'm trying to, go through myself, but also to share with others. And in the Bibliobota books, or the little library books, we celebrate stories. Literally we're celebrating stories and books and how important that is. Learning, books, education. Because my mom, again, as a school teacher, always told me, school learning does not stop once you're done with school. You be a lifelong learner, a lifelong student, and also be a teacher. And between those two things, you just continue on, and that's how you grow, and that's how you share, and that's how we become a better world in a sense for it. And I guess that's what I'm hoping for, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just a small contribution. It's like if we all did that, think of what we can change.
Thank you so much for all your teaching as well, John. And well, I thank you very, very much for being with us today, and hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.